please welcome the founder and CEO of Baseball United, Kash Shaikh, the managing director of OVG Middle East and chief business development officer at Ethara, Mr. David Powell, and the global commercial and marketing director at Wasserman Live, Stacy. Put your hands together. We're very far away from each other, aren't we? It's like COVID days. Is it because I've got a sore throat? They thought that would be the best thing. Kash is here with his cup of tea or coffee. Cheers.
That's right. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really, really looking forward to the panel because I'm looking forward to some real insights here, especially for the audience that we've got this morning. I am actually going to ask you all the same question just to start us off. You all work in the industry of creating unforgettable live sports experiences. What do you think, David, I'll come to you first, what is the single most important ingredient, if you like, for making these experiences absolutely unforgettable?
Fan experience. It's all about the fan experience. I think if you watched on social media over the course of the last 6 months over the summer, what you might have seen appearing on your Instagram feed is videos of crowds at Oasis and Coldplay concerts, of the show that is the audience now, and that communal experience of fans. It's all about that, matching the experience that people have, being entertained, whether that's sport or music or any form of live entertainment, but also being in a space which is value for money and gives them an unforgettable moment in time. So for me, it's about that. It's all about the fan experience.
Stacey?
I'm going to unfortunately have to agree with you. Right. I mean, I think we're all going to end up agreeing, right? You put the fan at the centre of everything you do, and for me, it's about creating that childlike wonder that we used to feel when we went to theme parks. It's creating this modern day spectacle where you're combining multiple different passion points. Yes, it's the sport is the key that drives them in, but actually it's more about the sport because we're also, the fans are incredibly interested in music, in fashion, in the whole entertainment experience. When a ticket buys you access to that, that's what becomes really important. And it starts from the moment they hit the car park, an intuitive wayfinding system so they can easily navigate to where they want to go. Interactive experiences by sponsors and brands that genuinely mean something to them, where they get a benefit for taking part.
They're not just wedged in there.
Exactly. They're not just forced in there. They're not just cookie cutter. There's a strong story arc, and that's really integrated with the sport itself. Being able to easily navigate to your seat, the experience of F&B, all of this rolled into one, and the most important thing is always the fan at the centre of everything.
It's interesting you say that before I come to you, Kash, because one of the things in events that I remember is people will always remember the parking situation and the food, right? So that's really, really important that you touched on both of those. And Kash, finally.
And the hot dogs, because we're baseball. You can't have baseball without hot dogs.
Big hot dogs.
Like the number one part of our marketing experience is come have a hot dog and have a nice drink and watch
what a
the
great
sport
marketing strategy.
That's right. Well, it's great to be here, and I think for us with baseball as a challenger brand in a new sport. Of course, fan experience, I completely agree. But one thing that I've learned over the last couple of years of building is when you're a new brand in a new sport, it's really important to kind of hone in on your core point of difference within the fan experience bucket. And for us, it's been more of this classic Americana food type of experience. And I would say 70% of the people that come to our games right now have not seen a professional baseball game before. I would say, we were just talking before we came up on stage, probably 85%, honestly, don't watch the game when they're there. They're eating, they're drinking, they're hanging out, they're seeing the mascots run around, they're looking at the cheerleaders, they're standing up at the 7th inning and singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," which we have to sing here before we leave. So, a lot of that is what we're trying to focus on and continue to learn of like what makes us different than all these different choices that people have here. Because, baseball is the oldest professional sport in the world. It's 150 years old, Major League Baseball. And we've been here 2.5 years. And when you look at all the sports that have come to the region in the last 5 to 10 years, there's just proliferation of different options. And I think trying to understand where you can be strategically different to get fans there is really important.
And it's so interesting because, I mean, congratulations on Baseball United. It has been absolutely phenomenal. And I understand you've got your first ever game coming up very shortly.
First season, yes.
First season, excuse me, of course. At the, is it called the BU?
Baseball United Ballpark.
Baseball United Ballpark in Dubai.
Right.
I mean, you've literally built it from nothing. If you build it, they will come.
Right.
Tell me about what's the biggest challenges that you've faced setting up a brand new league. How did you then go about winning over fans, I guess ultimately partners from that perspective? Because you're in a very different region here in the Middle East.
Right. Well, as you know, Baseball United is the first professional baseball league that's focused on the Middle East and South Asia, excuse me, with a real, obviously, footprint here in the GCC. I've co-founded the league with 20 Major League Baseball legends, and that's really been some of the firepower behind what we've been able to do. Guys like Mariano Rivera from the Yankees and Albert Pujols from the Cardinals. For those of you who don't know baseball, I always tell people it's kind of like Messi and Ronaldo came together to start a football league. That's kind of the guys we've been blessed to bring together for baseball. And then for us, you know, the biggest challenge is we've had to build the whole ecosystem from scratch. And when we started 3 years ago, I knew on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the hardest difficulty level, that this was going to be a 10. It turned out to be a 47, and still growing, because we had to not just educate a new fan base, but we had to build the facilities, as you mentioned, create the venue, launch all of our franchises built from scratch, recruit the players, bring on government partners, sponsors. Even from our broadcast distribution, one of the craziest things was when we had our first broadcast partnership with NBC and SSC, Dubai Sports Channel, Abu Dhabi Sports Channels in the region. The cameramen who came to shoot the games, they didn't know how to follow the ball. They'd never seen a baseball game before. So the ball would be in left field and the camera would be shooting out this way. And these are things that we learned in the early days, so that we had to really invest on the teaching and training at every level of the ecosystem. And now I think we've done a good amount, but we still got a ton more to do.
Well, for sure. And obviously we mentioned about the Baseball United ballpark, and you're up at the Dubai Sevens.
At the Sevens, yeah.
Where the Rugby Sevens takes place. So, David, I'm coming to you because obviously you are deeply involved in venues, as it were. And I want to talk about what do you think are the must-haves for venues to host these kind of huge, world-class sporting events?
Well, you mentioned parking and F&B, and that experience is essential. I mean, the journey also begins from when the fan wants to think about buying a ticket and then when they bought a ticket. So all of that connected journey that orientates itself towards accessing the venue, tickets to access a venue, and it's all connected with a promoter or a rights holder or a league. And the most important thing for our venues is for them to be a space in which people can have a great time, in a place that also places that are versatile, can host a multitude of different events. So, Kash and I were just talking about how can we find a venue in Abu Dhabi that would work for a game of baseball, and it's actually quite difficult, because you've got to think about the parking, the logistics, the way in which the field of play can be set out. Where do you put the grandstands? Where we're going to put the hospitality? And it is those nuts and bolts that make everything come to life. And being able to have conversations with people who can think more creatively, especially if you think about Yas Island. I mean, Yas Island is such a creative home for amazing destinations. How can we make not only Formula One that happens in this brilliant venue around us, but how can we have these concerts that really come to life, where the venue complements the amazing production that these people put forward? How can we have a baseball game on Yas Island that really sort of amplifies everything Kash is trying to do in terms of building a fan base here locally? And I think globally, standards from fans have increased. When I started going to sports events, the F&B was highly basic. And I think also when I went to a baseball game about 20 years ago but if you go to a baseball game or if you go to a Formula One event now, that is real premium, high quality F&B experience, all the way from public concessions all the way to premium hospitality, the expectation of everything that you experience, because it's not cheap to go to an event, right? And so you have to deliver that value back. So the venue has a huge part to play in making sure that these experiences help build the fan base and bring people back and back again to the sport, and they become fans for life.
Yeah. It's crazy how simple it is, but how true and powerful it is that without the venue, you can't build anything. And when you look at why has baseball, a top 5 sport, 600 million fans globally, not grown here, it was because there was nowhere to play. And you have 2 billion people in the subcontinent and the GCC combined with no baseball venues up until last year. And that of those 2 billion people, 1 billion are cricket fans. It's the bat and ball epicenter of the universe, but not one professional baseball game ever been played, and it's because there wasn't a venue. So I think that's been the biggest, most simple but biggest learning and biggest challenge is when we get a lot of different interests from different cities, but it's where are we going to play?
Yeah, most importantly, of course. Stacey, I want to bring you in on this, because obviously Wasserman works with huge global brands on these live experiences. I want to talk to you more about the kind of commercial element. What do sponsors and your commercial partners, what do they expect now from their events that they, I guess, didn't 5 or 10 years ago? Because we're saying everybody else, and even the fans, they want more, but what about your actual partners?
So the first thing that we do when we're looking at a commercial partnership is we always have to look at the value of the event that either they want or that we are proposing to them. And that value goes beyond kind of just eyeballs. So yes, it's about how many people will see it, but also it's about, does this ring true to their authentic brand? And what will this mega event deliver for them? And how does that play out? The next is then about creating a 360 campaign, because what you don't want a brand to do is just turn up, slap their logo on, and get out. What you need them to do is think about that 360 above and below the line and look at what happens pre the event, what happens during the event, what happens post the event. Why would a consumer want to integrate with you? Why would they want to come along to what you're doing? And what does that experience look like? Also then having the knowledge and having the expertise, and we guide them to that, to what does that sponsorship package look like? Where do we show up? How does the brand look? Are there any other plays we can look at? Do we get into the locker room? Do we do the player walkthrough? Do we integrate into all these different things as well? And then we look at elements like self-generating social, because an event goes beyond 90 minutes on the field, for example. For the brand, it's what happens afterwards as well. So how do you make sure that story arc continues on social? How do you fuel fandom in that respect? How do you just make it so that you're really intertwined? And that means a really close relationship with the local organising committee or the federation, a really close relationship with the venue as well, to ensure that all these parts are really seamless. That's how you get value for money. That's how you're going to get return on investment. And then weaved into all of that is the data that comes at the back end. So what has it actually done for the brand, and how has it elevated them?
And has that changed a lot, as you say? I mean, obviously, I guess in the last 10 years, we've got social coming involved. Obviously, big talk. I don't know if it's been mentioned yet today. AI. We haven't even said the word yet. But there is so many big changes coming up, isn't it? And they just want more and more.
There is. There used to be a stage, where a brand would turn up, they'd put their logo on, and they'd do some sort of little activation, and that was about it. Yeah. That's what they used to do, and they'd pay multi-millions.
But they were happy with that.
And they were happy with it. Now it's much more integrated. So there's the integration part, there's the authenticity part at the same time. But it's also about how do you elevate that experience, and that experience has to be elevated now. So, there is pressure on every dollar that is being spent. So how is that ROI being proven? And also for brands, what we advise is how do you integrate other parts of what you do? Because, we've already mentioned it's beyond the sport, it's about music, it's about entertainment, it's about the gourmet experience. So as a brand, how do you make sure that you're taking all of that into account and making sure you're getting the most? And then the social part of it, as well as the broadcast. And, dare we say, AI does keep coming up more and more on the proposals that we make and the plans that we're integrating for clients.
So then, on that same ilk, and David, I'll come to you, but I'm really interested to know what you all think of this. Because we're kind of linking, obviously you've got your hospitality, the entertainment side of it, but bringing in that technology element, what's the big innovation that you're most excited about that's going to change the game, basically, for the fans? Excuse the pun.
I mean, with technology, it must be integrated and serve a purpose. You can't just be introducing technology or AI for the sake of it, and then, because that doesn't sell an event. You can't just say, I've got AI at my event, it's going to come to my event. It's not about that. It's about how can you actually increase, again, that fan experience, that bespoke nature of the way in which you engage with your client. And so something that's kind of exciting to me is something that's very simplistic, that makes such a big change. I'll give you an example of that. We work with a startup business here in Abu Dhabi, and they will fix to your lanyard a little bit of technology that identifies you as David. David is coming to your event. He's going to be a guest in your hospitality suite. He is vegan. And the team there will already know that he is vegan, and they will be able to then say, welcome to the hospitality suite, David. We're pleasure to be a guest of Farah. The chef has prepared something specially for you. And it's just that little bit of technology that sits behind that experience that it just makes the whole world of difference. And then all of the stuff that goes into, what was just being said about data and marketing is absolutely essential. But for me, it's about how do you improve that fan experience by doing something that's very simplistic, that's very technology-driven, but actually has an outcome that improves the overall satisfaction of your client.
Yeah, I think from our side, just thinking from a league side, what's been exciting about everything happening in AI, there's so many things that we can do now very quickly with obviously minimal resources. So I'll give you an example. When we were having our baseball games here in February, there's not many local media that know the sport that can cover it. So we were having to kind of create the recaps for the games, the details, and send that out. Now just using a score sheet that we can upload into a chat GPT or something similar, all the briefs, all the summaries, all the write-ups and recaps of the games we can send out instantly to everybody. And that's been a huge game changer. I think with the stats that we can compile much more quickly now with AI, getting them out to different sources has been huge. And I think for a small kind of startup league, those have been game changers for us.
And that's really important, right? When you've got a predominantly new audience to a sport that might not be understanding the rules or how it works.
Right.
That kind of instantaneous, personalized messaging to them is crucial.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, I saw a bit of technology recently that is able in real time to capture how happy the fans are in your venue, which is linked to CCTV, and it records how many people are smiling on the ground. And so that's great. I think that's fascinating pieces of technology. And all the things that then go into the operational planning, about how crowds move, how safety can be improved, how traffic and transport, all of those sort of harder service elements to a major event delivery. All of technology has a huge role to play in that.
And I know from our point of view, you look at, we've had a huge drive on sustainable materials, and what does sustainability really mean, and how can you really step to the plate and say we're doing something because it's the right thing to do. So for us, making sure that we're managing out harmful materials, we're introducing fully sustainable and compostable materials, and we have just, after 2.5 years, we've been in prototype, we're now able to create sneakers from our waste materials. So after an event, we can take off the branding, and 85% goes into creating sustainable sneakers.
Wow.
So that's the type of innovation that goes beyond just purely tech, traditional tech-based, and into something that's meaningful for
and actually making a difference as opposed to greenwashing, which we know happens a lot. Stacey, we were chatting about it kind of before, and we've mentioned about fan expectations being higher than ever, and they are. But I want to talk to you more about, I guess, the commercial realities. David, we touched on it about ticket prices to events and things like that. But how do you balance those commercial realities with then delivering authentic, and again, going back to memorable experiences?
Look, I think we were having a very good chat about it before. You go back to the early days, and there is a lot of competition for events. There are a lot of sports, there are a lot of music, there is a lot of entertainment. So an event has to be more than just one singular thing now. It has to capture all. As well as that, events aren't cheap to put on. Kash, setting up in a new market, it is costly. The sheer logistics and operational side can't be overlooked. And it's costly for a very good reason, because you're elevating the experience so much more. And therefore, that has to be reflected. And that's usually reflected in the ticket price. So when the ticket prices are high, my goodness, you better show exceptional value for a consumer and a fan, and that needs to come in other forms. You're not just there to see a baseball game, you're there to experience the food and the drink, you're there to see a halftime show at the NFL, you're there to go to the concerts afterwards, the 5 concerts that you get access to this theme park experience. The whole model, which the flight industry used to do really well, and I think ticketing followed a similar suit of you buy early, you get really cheap, and it becomes astronomical at the end. Well, if I'm going to go on a flight, or if I want to see a AFC match, I'm going to buy that ticket no matter the price, because you've got me. So actually the model has flipped slightly, where it is quite expensive to buy up front, and it should be expensive to buy up front, because they're the core passionate fans. And then towards the end, depending on how many tickets you've got available, you have to make a commercial decision. Do we need to sell them, or do we not? Is it better to just keep them off and maintain that kind of high price? But the value proposition that you get within that ticket needs to be communicated really well.
It's crazy to see, just coming in from the States, the ticketing and ticket sales market here.
Oh, really?
Because you have a super high-end, kind of $800 a ticket for F1, and then you have the other end where everybody expects everything for free. And when we, even you have the golf events that are happening, you have cricket events where most of the tickets are given away. And when you come in as a new league, you have to kind of understand and compete with that environment. We have 3,000 seats at our ballpark. We probably have 4,000 requests for free tickets. Whether it's schools, government partners, sponsors, the definition of VIP has expanded quite a bit. So it's always been a challenge for us to say, okay, how are we allowing people to come in the top of the funnel to experience this, even if we're having to give away a certain amount? And then hopefully grow that fandom over time as they come in. And then how many are we setting aside that no matter what, we're selling these? And that's been kind of a formula that we're still trying to perfect. But it's something that I've noticed it's a bit more unique to this market than I've seen in other markets.
Yes, we do hear that a lot, don't we? David, you're nodding along enthusiastically, because obviously you look after the Abu Dhabi Formula One Grand Prix. You must get this a lot in terms of the ticket price versus what they're going to get, and how do you keep them, and do you sell them cheap? Do you keep them back? Tell me more.
Yeah, the points that were made were great, and just to apply them to the F1 here in Abu Dhabi, we used to sell tickets in Abu Dhabi for an average ticket price of about $180. And that was up until 2018, 2019, so just before the pandemic. And now, like Chris was saying, at $800 average ticket price. That's not just about price gouging, it's about doing something that's adding to the value proposition for a fan. And that's about music. So we invest in music with 4, 5, 6 after-race concerts that are inclusive within the ticket. And that's not just, generic music performance in an Oasis area, but that's Metallica and Eminem and Post Malone. So we put value in so people feel like they're getting value out. The other thing that we do is, when I started my career, the head of ticketing, a guy I used to work with, he had a big sign above his desk. He said, "No free tickets. No free tickets. As soon as you give a free ticket away, you're done. You are so done." And that's actually really hard in this place of the world, because over time there has been the mentality, oh, I'll get a ticket from someone. I'll get a free ticket. But if you get to a point where you're driving that front-end sales, and you can't miss that experience, and you have to be in and buy it, otherwise there isn't going to be a way for you to get in. That's how you drive a demand-based approach towards the way in which you convert. But it's not easy. It's taken us in Abu Dhabi with F1, it's taken us 16 years to get to that. So you just need to build and build and build. But I'll never forget that, guys. No free tickets for anyone, even people who work in this building. No free tickets.
It's so funny because you say that, because I got a free ticket, but to the after-race concert to see Prince at the very first Abu Dhabi Formula One. And I thought, hang on, if I can get a free ticket to see Prince, I'm never paying for anything again.
Exactly.
That unfortunately didn't work out for me, but it was interesting. And you're right, in this region, I mean, it's non-stop. I want to talk to you, Kash, really, because you're moving into this. I want to talk more about legacy. Now, beyond the events themselves, let's talk about global events and new leagues like yourself. How can we genuinely drive, sort of grassroots participation and then that lean into kind of long-term development?
Well, I think legacy is an important and powerful word, and we look at it in a couple different ways. One is we've always been really focused on top-down and bottom-up. And with baseball in particular, it's been about how we can get into the schools, get into the communities, help build what we call little leagues. There's a great little league in Dubai. There's a great partnership we have here in Abu Dhabi with something called Abu Dhabi Little Sluggers, getting little kids that are 5 years old to hold a bat and something called a tee. My son's 1. I'm already trying to help him swing the bat. But just really getting the grassroots level. The other thing that we've been focusing on is the national teams in the region. There were no baseball national teams, and baseball is an Olympic sport. So there was no UAE, no Saudi, no Qatar national team. We've been building those the last 3 years. So last year we put the UAE national team on the field for the first time for baseball. And that's been part of the legacy-driven, the long-term approach. The benefits for those, it's tricky when you're trying to build a profitable business as well, because obviously that doesn't make you any money, but you know that it will help grow the sport in 10, 15, 20 years. So that's been a core part of what we've been focusing on. And then for us, we're really blessed because we're getting to do everything for the first time. So we always tell our team, let's go make some more history today. And that's important to us, being able to bring something here for the first time, the first games, the first season, the first hot dogs, the first mascots. All that has been exciting, and it's a core part of our company culture.
Keep mentioning hot dogs, and it's not even near lunchtime.
There we go. It's subliminal messaging to you guys.
Do you know, I actually went to, I've only ever been to one baseball game. I went to Chicago Cubs, Atlanta Braves.
There you go.
Sure, thanks very much. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. And the food was amazing, so
good.
That was part of the memory as well. Look, I'm conscious of time, and I'm not Chris McCarty. I will not run over by 4 hours of every single session. I want to ask all of you, looking ahead, as we do, we're talking about creating legacy, and what is it you say to your team? Make history today. How are we going to make history today?
Yep.
And I love that line. David, I'll start with you. What do you see as kind of the biggest opportunity, or I guess ultimately the biggest challenge, in shaping the future of these huge sporting events over the next, let's go 10 years?
The fan base is getting younger, and the people who work in the industry are getting older, and myself included. And understanding about what people in their 20s want from an event. And they're going to become mums and dads one day, and what do they want for their kids to experience? And they're going to be people who create a legacy. You have to bring your kids to an event so they get inspired to take up that sport, because also that from a parent involves a lot of investment. So understanding that demographic is very, very important. And to hark back to sustainability, if you're not delivering a credible sustainable proposition offering, if you're not offering a entertainment proposition, that's orientated towards music and fashion, and creating something that's aspirational, you're failing. If you're stuck in sort of 5 years ago mode and I'm just going to roll out the same event in the same way it's always worked before, that sport will die. And there's no better example of that than Formula One. Liberty Media's take over that, and turning that sport actually into an entertainment brand is the way in. And understanding that the new under 35 demographic want very different things to people my age. And I think that's really important for over the next decade.
And as well, going just very quickly before I move on to you, Stacey, but you're saying about Formula One and Drive to Survive and everything, and I am an absolute Drive to Survive convert. Like, I used to say to my dad, why am I watching this? It's just cars going around in a circle every Sunday, and now I am obsessed. I'm the one up at 2 o'clock in the morning, because the female fan base has increased so much.
3 in 5 new fans to the sport are aged under 35 and female.
Wow.
And it's about presenting Formula One and the drivers and the entertainment proposition and the interest and the drama and the excitement that isn't just the car going round and round in free practice.
Right.
And that is Drive to Survive, I suppose. But that has to be true of all sports, not just Formula One. I think all sports have to evolve like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Stacey, asking you the same question.
For me, I suppose there's 2 things. One is the power of women's sport is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Is what, sorry?
The power of women's sport.
Yeah, women's sports,
is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, off the back of a really successful Rugby World Cup in the UK, where England triumphed, that trajectory is only going to increase, where brands, more brands than ever before, come to the forefront, and private equity companies like Mercury 13 continue to investing and reshaping what that female sport experience looks like. So that's number 1. Number 2 for me is the importance of infrastructure and backing. So one is ensuring that venues, stadia, cities are capable of delivering these major events, and that comes down to infrastructure, transportation, and all that, what can seem as boring experience, but is incredibly important, and the legacy of what happens after that. So is that a permanent venue? Will it always be there? What is it going to come more of? What is it going to do? And then from a city point of view, if it's a major event like an Olympics or a FIFA World Cup, for example, what is the plan now for what's going to happen afterwards? The worst thing you can do is build a stadium and then leave it to mothball. It has to have a purpose afterwards, and that needs to be taken into account before any architect comes anywhere near it. So that's crucially important as well.
Interesting. Finally, Kash, to you then.
I think I agree with both my panelists here, and I think the fact that the fan base is getting younger, particularly in this region, is critical on the media consumption as well. If you think about it, 10 years ago, 80% of fans of a sport would watch that sport on linear media, on broadcast. Now, 80% of fans under 30 are watching only on social. They're not watching a full game. They're watching on TikTok or IG really quickly, which is a very tricky transition, because the number one revenue driver for most sports leagues has been your media rights. And now with people not watching a full game, not watching on linear, even on your OTT platforms, people aren't watching the whole game. Trying to navigate that, I think, is the next big challenge of how can you know that your fans are going to watch 46 seconds of a TikTok video, and that's what they're going to take from the game.
And weirdly, that's a long time.
Right, exactly.
Right?
That's a long time. You've got that, and then you've got, obviously, the long-form opportunity that you mentioned with Drive to Survive, which is that supplementary content. And that's what we're really focused on, is what's the kind of BTS, behind the scenes, supplementary content to drive the brand affinity and the story, and then what's like the few seconds of the game that we're going to share. And then when people come to the game, they're just eating and drinking anyway, so.
Mentioning food again.
There you go.
I think Kash has got an issue here, do you? Listen, the clock has gone. Thank you so much. I know that, I think you're going to kind of be hanging around. Kash, good luck for the new league. David, obviously, good luck for everything that you've got. You've got a busy season coming up. And Stacey, thanks for flying in, as always, and your support with the event for Wasserman. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.